Right, good evening and welcome. If you're settling in for a quiet bit of political analysis, you might want to grab a hard hat and a stiff drink, because what we're about to dissect is anything but quiet. What unfolded on GB News wasn't a debate, it was a detonation. It was the moment civil discourse was thrown out of the window and replaced with pure, unadulterated verbal warfare. This is the new face of British political television, a blood sport masquerading as a morning news programme.
You're absolutely right. We're talking about the formidable Carole Malone, who didn't just critique Prime Minister Keir Starmer, she conducted a live on-air demolition of his credibility. And as if that wasn't enough, it spiraled into a blazing row that had more sparks flying than a bonfire on Guy Fawkes night. This goes far beyond simple commentary. This is a visceral display of the deep fractures running through the British body politic, all playing out before our very eyes.
And let's paint the picture of the perfect storm that led to this moment, because it didn't happen in a vacuum. On one side, you have the ever-present Nigel Farage promising to rip Britain out of the European Court of Human Rights with a speed that would make your head spin, all in the name of sovereignty. On the other, you have Keir Starmer, desperately trying to project an image of a calm, collected Prime Minister, all while juggling a book of political contradictions so thick it could stop a door.
And caught in the middle of it all is the British public, who are, to put it mildly, fed up to the back teeth with the entire never-ending circus of immigration. It's a collision of narratives, a perfect political tinderbox. Into the scene walks Carole Malone. She sits down in the GB News studio, and you can see the moment something snaps. Something about Starmer's cautious, legalistic approach to the ECHR just flipped a switch. What followed was less of a political point and more of a surgical strike. She stared down the barrel of the camera and launched this missile. Starmer is never going to do it, no matter who tells him, because as a human rights lawyer, he's too scared to defy the ECHR.
Scared. What a word to use against a prime minister. In the theatre of politics, calling a leader scared is the equivalent of slapping them across the face with a wet fish in front of the entire nation. It's brutal, it's not diplomatic in the slightest, but my word, it gets your attention. Malone is essentially arguing that Starmer's entire professional identity, his very DNA as a lawyer, has left him so institutionally captured that he's incapable of making a tough, decisive call for the country, even if his political survival depended on it.
It's a devastatingly effective line of attack because it turns his biggest strength, his legal expertise, into his greatest weakness. She paints him as a man trapped by his own rulebook, unable to act because he's perpetually worried about the legal footnotes. She didn't stop there either. She brought up Graham Stringer, a Labour MP who's known for speaking his mind, claiming he'd identified the real issue, a figure named Lord Herma, who she alleges follows international law to the letter, as if that's a crime. It's a fascinating inversion of logic where upholding the law is presented as a betrayal of the national interest.
And just as you think the assault can't get any more intense, because this is GB News and they thrive on intellectual prize fights, enter Jonathan Liss. He steps into the ring to defend the ECHR as if it were his own family crest. His argument, which in any other era would sound perfectly reasonable, is that maybe, just maybe, being part of an international body that protects human rights is actually a good thing for Britain and its people. A revolutionary thought, I know.
He tried to introduce nuance into a knife fight. He pointed out that Starmer's position isn't born from cowardice, but from the principled belief that these protections matter. He brought up the fact that British citizens have taken the UK government to Strasbourg and won, proving the court serves as a vital check on power. But in today's climate, that kind of careful constitutional analysis goes down about as well as a salad at a steakhouse. The audience wants red meat, not a lecture on legal precedent. What you were watching was a head-on collision between two entirely different worldviews.
Exactly. On one side, you have Malone representing the just get on with it school of thought, where international law is a pesky inconvenience. On the other, Liss represents the, well, actually, it's complicated brigade, where every action has a dozen consequences that must be weighed. Malone then fired back with the classic populist argument, we have legislation in this country that would take care of things. It's the political equivalent of throwing away the instruction manual and insisting you know how to build the IKEA wardrobe yourself.
And this is where the debate turned nuclear, because Malone brought out her ultimate weapon, the deportation of illegal migrants. She masterfully connected the abstract legal debate about the ECHR directly to the visceral emotional issue of small boats crossing the channel. She argued that the court is the primary obstacle preventing Britain from controlling its borders, tapping directly into the public's deep-seated frustration. Her reference to Jack Straw, a former Labour Home Secretary, was a stroke of genius. It lent her populist argument a veneer of establishment credibility.
It was a killer blow. She was effectively saying, even your own lot think the system is broken. And then she went for the jugular, accusing the entire legal profession of being driven not by justice but by greed. She painted a picture of human rights lawyers as vultures, financially incentivized to keep the migrant crisis going, to keep the cases flowing, all at the taxpayer's expense. It's an incredibly cynical but politically potent accusation.
Liss fought back, of course, defending lawyers as people who genuinely care about the rule of law, but in the court of public opinion, that argument is a much harder sell. And then came the most incendiary claim of all. Malone looked at the camera and declared that human rights lawyers hate Britain. An absolutely explosive accusation. It moves the argument beyond policy disagreement and into a dark place of questioning people's loyalty and patriotism.
Liss's reaction was furious and immediate. He called it outrageous and cleverly flipped the script, suggesting that the real Britain haters are those who constantly run the country down and attack its institutions. But Malone was ready with her trump card, the British public. She spoke directly to the people at home struggling with the cost of living, telling them they were footing the bill for illegal immigrants, and she said they were sick to the back teeth of it. By mentioning the protests in the streets, she connected the studio debate to real-world anger, making it seem like she was the voice of the people against the out-of-touch elites.
And that ultimately is what makes this so significant. This single, fiery exchange encapsulates the entire culture war consuming British politics. It's about sovereignty versus international law, populism versus institutionalism, and emotion versus legal complexity. Starmer is caught in the crossfire, a lawyer in an age that has grown suspicious of lawyers. His expertise has become his curse, and every cautious, considered statement he makes is weaponized by his opponents as a sign of weakness and disloyalty. This single row on a morning news show tells you everything you need to know about the state of Britain today.
A truly fascinating and frankly terrifying glimpse into the heart of our political discourse. If you want to keep seeing deep dives like this, uncovering the truth behind the political theatre, then make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Alert View. Click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss an update from us. We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.